She Mike Lerma Yeneshe, Budapecha Nishle. My name is Mike Lerma. I am from the Budapecha tribe. I am the director of the Net Policy Institute at the Net College. I had the honor and privilege of working with Professor Avery Denny over the last 14 years. He has served as my mentor, and it is with great privilege that I have the opportunity to present him as this session's wisdom weaver. I met Mr. Denny about 14 years ago, and we've been working together ever since on various projects. And when it came time to expand my life and have a wife, he was able to step in for me and meet Adrian and teach us how to take care of one another as we travel on for these next decades together. And so without any further ado, I introduce Mr. Avery Denny.
Yat Adrian Lerma Yenishia, Nakaidina Enishle, Nash Aja Tabahambashin, Tachini Deshanelak, Ozofana Deshache, Torenes Dizade Nasha. My name is Adrian Lerma. I was born and raised on the Navajo Nation. I've had the privilege of working with Mr. Denny for a number of years in an academic capacity, but also getting to know his family as close relatives, as a support system for myself and my family. Prior to the pandemic, we had begun working together at Denny College, and during that time, we had already been engaged in a ceremonial community where we were attending the different prayers and ceremonies that he was conducting and learning songs. And it came to a point where there was a need for knowledge dissemination from the fireplace into the classroom, where there was an expression of a need for teaching and passing on information related to ceremony to students who were going to carry it forth for the next generation of Hatathli healers, medicine people. And to be a part of that was amazing because we were able to bring our families together, and we were able to sit together in a hogan, which is it's a home that Diné people live in. It's also a ceremonial space where prayers are conducted, healing occurs, miracles happen, basically. And we're able to come in with our families, sit on the ground and learn, ask questions, and begin to understand how we not only survive as a people, but how do we thrive together? How do we keep our communities together? How do we unite our families? And so that relationship grew over the years. And when the pandemic hit, we came together, we stuck together, and were able to utilize the songs and the prayers that we learned with following Avery, but also in the classroom. And every single day we use those songs, we use those prayers so that we could strengthen our spirit, so that we could fight this monster that was and is COVID-19. We learn a lot about how these songs not only provide direction and instruction, but it's also a practical application of knowledge. And that's how we utilized it. We utilized it, in the morning when we got up, we would pray. In the afternoon when the sun was directly above us, and then in the evening. We utilized that time to give thanks for our life and to ask for protection as we move through our day, because it was during a very scary time. It was during a time of the unknown, and where there was a lot of fear and there was a lot of death, and it was all around us, and it was getting closer and closer every day. And so to rely on that element of our culture, to rely on that element of who we are as a people, I believe is what gave us the strength to survive, and it gave us the courage to fight, and it gave us the will to live, because what we learned from these songs and prayers is that you don't just beg for your life while you sit and wait for this enemy to come. You got to stand up and you got to fight back. and you got to be strong, and you got to be brave, and you got to be willing to make sacrifices in order to live for that, like through that day onto the next. And so we were able to utilize these periods where we had to shelter in place, these periods of isolation, to build a fire, to sing, to pray with our children, and to fight together as a family. And I really do attribute our ability to do that to Hatathli Denny and all of the other Hatathli on the Navajo Nation that took the time to teach us, to answer our questions, and to be patient with us as we learned. Because, you know, as we're learning with these wisdom weavers, story times through this series, is that we know that this knowledge is sacred. We know that it's meaningful. We knew that it's meant for us so that we can utilize it to heal and to grow and to pass on that knowledge. But we also know that it's also something that we need to take care of. With the privilege is also a responsibility, and with that responsibility is that, you know, we there's accuracy that's important, you know what I mean? There's protocols that need to be followed. And so I'm really grateful that the Hatathli that are alive today, who've learned these ways from our ancestors and carry them still, that they have the heart to pass it on to us, and they're patient with us as we learn. And even though they make fun of us sometimes and give us a hard time, it builds that resiliency within us, and it continues to give us what we need to move forward in this day, you know, to be who we are, to be authentically Denny, to be the people, you know, the 5-finger earth surface people. So for that, I'm grateful, and that's why I'm here today too, and I'm very happy to be a part of this series that this program is providing to the people of the various nations. So, Ahiahat, thank you.
Sesna Chile Denashan Sanang Pike Hojot Zeknan away Denashowe Sesna Chile Denashan So Zek Denashan Sanang Pike Hojot Zeknant away, that not show away, so zek that not shine. Dog or sleep that not shine. Sana away, big horizon. Zeknant away, that not show away, dog or sleep that not shine. The banner sun that not shine. Sana bike horizon, zeknat away, that not show away, the bensat that not sham, zeknat that not sham. Sana bike horizon, zeknat away, that not show away, zeknat that not sham. Zechon tenasha, sana bike horizon, zeknat away, tenasha, zechon tenasha. Yad abene, she, thodok oje. Den Ensle, Totsohne Bashichin, Tatnes Zahne, Dashiche, Sanje Kene Dashanale, Denne Nishle. Ako Yat my clan introduction. Usually that's the first introduction when you have an audience to greet. It's formal, it's a way of introduction to the earth, your universe, and where you come from. So it's more spiritual introduction because you represent your mother's clan, your father's clan, your maternal grandfather's clan, and your paternal grandfather's clan. The 4 people that you represent, You have a white, red, blue, and black blood cell in your body. I know it doesn't seem right to say white, blue, yellow, and black, but in our own native language is hatilchiki, hatilakaki, hatiltotlishiki, hatiltlijeniki, geniniki, so that takes care of your self-image, your self-identity, social image, and your physical, holistic, and your spiritual image. So that is more appropriate because we have a fire that's burning here, where the air is present, and the holy people, that divine nature is here, that listens to what we're going to say. And the elements are here, and talk about our lives here, because life is precious. So let me start by time and date. It was December, right before COVID, 2020, in the fall, winter season. We're having a winter ceremony over there in our Navajo reservation. It was winter, it was cold, and we had a ceremony for 9 nights, and we're ready to conclude, ready to be done with that. And people came home for the vacation from Phoenix, Albuquerque, and different areas, and they wanted to attend the ceremony. And when they arrived there, they came in happy, and they were all shaking hands, and we're glad to see them. And during that time, we didn't realize that it was a flu. It was a COVID. So we just greeted them, and it was just a normal way of greetings, and in the ceremony, it was appropriate. But after the ceremony, and when I went back home to my family and my children, and I came down with the flu symptom. And really, I don't know if I got the COVID or did I get the flu. So I ended up in the hospital, in the clinic, in the emergency room. And that's where they treated me, the doctors. And they gave me some medication for that. But I went back home and I treated myself with those pills and plus herbal medicine. And it's been like, after that, went back to work, teaching at the college, and I was normal. I healed, came back, and like nothing happened. So I was working come January, February, March. So by March, spring break, the second week of March, we did our midterm exam, and the students were all released to go home for spring break. And while on that spring break, they shut down the whole Navajo reservation. Nobody was coming into the reservation or going out. So it was all enclosed. And it was a sickness that we have never heard about, that COVID-19, and they call it pandemic. So all the stores were closed, nobody was driving, and came down, but still we had to go back to work somehow. Students did not come back, the students did not return. But we continued to have class on Zoom all the way to May. And we had no graduation, and then come summertime too, it was still closed. So somewhere around that time, we had the Navajo Nation. They, through that court system, judicial court system, they came to my home and they wanted to have a diagnosis and to see what this COVID was. from the Indian perspective, ceremonial perspective. What is it? There's questions that needs to be answered. And they came up with 4 or 5 questions, and they were talking about it. And they asked me to provide answers through the diagnostic and what it's going to reveal and what it's going to tell us. So we fixed the hogan there. The hogan is more similar to this lodge in here. We had fire, we had the charcoal there, we took our instruments down, and we sat there. And a lot of representation from different social services, healthcare, providers, and education. They all came around, and we all sat down, and of course, we had mass on, and we did the ceremony there. So we went through all the procedures, and the question came up, and I asked a question to the spiritual holy being. And through that, I had to translate what COVID was and what it was, where it come from, how did it restart. So as I sat there and I was learning where it came from, and I had to translate that into our language. And one of the findings came up with this is ancient type of a finding. This is a monster. This is an alien being, like it came from another world or it was new. And that was one of the first findings. The second one was it came from the water. And it seemed like something dropped from the sky, from another universe or from outer space, and it went to the water, and then the water had splash, or there was a current, a wave. And at the same time, too, it revealed that somewhere in that time, too, also, that big chunk of ice in the Arctic, the glacier, big old mass of iceberg fell into the ocean, and in that ice, frozen water, there was a old carcass of some ancient animal that was probably frozen in time a million years ago, and it fell into the water and it thawed out and it melted. That was blood stain, or actual blood that went into the water. It came on land somewhere. It floated, that water sipped and over there, and it made contact with the land. And that water at the same time came onto the island or somewhere on land. And all these fish, animals, sea, land animals were exposed to that. And here come along the human beings, and they took part of it, and then they ate it, and they got the bacteria, the sickness, into their body, into the blood. And that's how they got sick. So, and then it got political, it said. Then somebody went into scientists, they found the finding, and this is like a virus. And it goes from there, political, and all these countries got together, and they made it a way to be able to make money off of it. And back in that year, that time, even before that, see, these people knew about it way 2020, but what this finding was, it was like already 10 years old, and somehow finally it leaked. It linked out to the communities, and then it started to spread. So that was what I was talking about, and I really didn't know what was going on at the time, but I was talking about that. And that was just the information that I delivered, and people were just quiet sitting there. I then went on and said, this is how you take care of it, cure it, or fight it. So one of the first things that it told us is that you have to go back to your native culture, where you come from, your origin, your clan, your bloodline. And it's good to eat native food, corn, because corn is how you explain your origin, your essence, and the existence of life. You go to the cornfield, gather your own corn, your ancestral corn that your mother, your grandfather, grandmother has. You plant that and harvest it, and you collect the pollen off that, and then you eat the corn. Corn is a fighting power against any sickness. So that was the first information. And then you go back to your herbal plant like this, collect it, and then you preserve it, dry it, and process it, and you put an offering before you collect it, and then you gather it, and then you have a mixture of these like sage, tobacco, and other herbal plants that's related to nature. And then you put it in the water, and then you boil it, and then you let it cool down. It becomes a tea. You drain it, and then you drink it, and that's going to help you to be immune to all the sickness. So, and then prayer, psalms, belief, and your faith. Over here at clinical, they get shots, but over here, what if you don't want to get a shot? What if you don't want to go to the clinic? What if you are afraid of the needle? Then you go with this side. So by that time, it was summertime, almost at the fall, in the early fall, and we were all kind of like under the lockdown, and people didn't really realize that it was really a pandemic, and people were dying. And what happens, like, how do you treat that COVID? We call it grief now, because this is a new kind of loss, dying, death among the tribe. And how do you take care of that? How do you process that? And one example that I have is that one of my relatives passed away, and her sister came down really hard. She had a breakdown, and the younger sister, just came back from city, and when she got fevers, she went to the clinic, and she never came back. From the time that she got the symptom, and 5 days later, she had already passed away. And just for 1 minute, the sister went over there, and they were able to talk to their sister, but she was in a plastic, and she was already at a stage 4, ready to pass away. But still, they tried to talk to her and say our farewells. But then she passed, and then they came back, and she was in a plastic bag, and thinking that they could just go to the store and buy her a brand new clothes and dress her up, and then she would be on her way, let her go like that. But it didn't happen like that. And they saw that the casket, the plastic, and then all the clothes that they bought, they just put it next to her body, and they put her down like that. And how the traditional people, how they used to do at that time was there's a grieving part of that process that didn't happen. And it was just like no gathering, no big feast, meals, and nothing, no smoke, smudging, everything. All that process was not proceeded or not done. It was all missing, and it was really hurtful. And today, a lot of people are like that. And I'd like to share, like, there's a time where these family, they live in a hokan like this size, and at least about maybe 15 people live in this home. There's fire, food, sleeping quarters, everything right there, and 15 people got affected one day, and they had to go to the clinic. and they all got COVID, and none of them, they came home. They just left. And what they were doing was not finished. They were still doing it. So then one daughter came home, went to that place, and after she lost all the family members and she came home, it looked like the children were still playing, and mother was doing, grandma was doing something here, something was going on, and they just left. The door wasn't even shut properly. And it was like, even that home was a place of loneliness, despair, and it was like not a safe place to be, and you couldn't even live in there. Or how do you accept that? How do you do the purification there? And all of these became a question. How do you process that? How do you do that? So we live with that today, and we're trying to fix all of these, trying to find the remedy for a lot of that. So, and through that diagnosis, then we began to understand how to proceed and how to work with these tools that we have, and how to help people through that, and through counseling and other ceremony. And we're faced with that because in our oral history, we've been told through this oral history that way back a long time ago, like millions of years ago, there was a time where these monsters lived on the land here. And when they all died, they left behind disease, bad influences, bad, politics, greed, and, all of these things that people picked up and learned. So it all comes from those monsters, evil monsters, and those stories remind us how these are dangerous parts in our time. They're coming back because a lot of these, just for example, like you go to a museum and there's a dinosaur displayed, the bones remains, and that's the evil spirit. That's the monsters. How come you undug it? How come you took it out? And so everybody would look at it. And their carcass, their remains, is that become oil. And you extract the oil now, it's pollution and everything. And there's a war, money, politics. So you have to be careful about that. And we were reminded of those stories back then. And how do we treat that? So then we got back together with our medicine men and their ceremonies, and we've revisited the tools, the diagnostic way to look into, to diagnose a person that had symptom. And we visit those tools, and a diagnostic is looking through a crystal, through songs and prayer, that only certain individual will have the gift. And then they use their hand to diagnose these symptoms and find, the healing recommendation. And just by listening and sharing, talking, letting go like that, that was another procedure. And then the removal of these symptoms in the mind, in the body, soul, or somewhere, then you extract that from the body and then just let go of it like that. That process, what are the language, what are the tools, and what are the ceremony to do that. So we went back over there and we visit those. Those are just like 1 day, 1 hour, 2 hour ceremony. And put it down, let's use that. So we came back and this is the tool that we're going to use. And then for a more complex, major, deep symptoms, then we have these ceremonies. There are 5-night ceremony, 9 nights ceremony. So then we took them out again, and then we did an inventory, and we came down and actually say that these ceremonies, they take care of certain symptoms like this, for loss of human, loss of, sicknesses, through any kind of like mental disorder condition and all of that, and then we put them down, and we revisit, and we begin to communicate that these are the ceremonies that would be good to use for this type of a treatment. So we call them hathal nahaga sotizin ha hayatke che hoyatke and arotadatindo hojonge, blessing the way, protection the way, how to shield yourself, how to protect yourself, how to get out of that dark, evil place and remove yourself and come out into the light and make a new path, create a new footstep here, and then start off fresh and new. Make new goals and objectives, good, clear leadership, have a clear mind, and get away from that place and go this way like that. And the whole family could do that. So ceremonies are conducted as individual, family, units, and then as public health too also. And we included all of that. And we began to really concentrate on those areas over back home. So we are in the process moving forward using those ceremonies today like that. So, and it seemed like it's really successful. Of course, we lost a lot of people. Our knowledge holders, our ceremonial medicine people, we've lost a lot. And when they go, taking all that knowledge, and there is no way to retain that. There's no way to get it back. It's all in their mind, and they don't really share because they don't write, and none of them is recorded, like in books or anywhere. And when they go, all that knowledge is just like fall into the water and just washed away, and there's no remain. So we realized that too. So today we're we're kind of like setting a course to relearn some of these ceremonies. Young people, they have a lot of interest in all of that to learn. So that's where we're at today with our ceremonial practices and our healing. And you call it holistic healing and diagnostic, and then chant way ceremony. And we say, like there's this evil way. If you are exposed to a cemetery, burial, gravesite, and if you have ghosts that haunt you, there's a ceremony for that to take care of that. And then there's another ceremony, a group of ceremonies, about 10 ceremonies that take care of supernatural. That includes animal, like land animals, snake, bear, porcupine, and then deer, and then nature, water, lightning, thunder, hail, and those are elements that people get hurt by that. And you can have a PTSD in that weather. So you get scared and you develop a symptom, cramping and all of that. So you go to that ceremony and they would clear. And all of that too, there's death. There's a person that drowns in that water, a person that's struck by lightning, a person that was bitten by a snake that passed. So it all has to do with a loss of relative. So then there has to be treatment to clear their mind and get out of that too also. And then the last one, the third category, the third one is they call it the life way, inache, and they go out in the field. These herbalists, they collect herbs and they take it back to the hogan, and then it's for an individual. They come over, they put it in a basket like this, and they put water in there, and then they mix that herb in there, and then they sing and have that person come around, kneel down, and then they put their mouth, and they don't use a cup or a straw. They actually drink out of the basket with their mouth touching the water, and then they drink that, and then after they feel like they had enough, then they wash with that from the hair all the way down, and then it clears their mind, and then it takes away all that spirit, and then, of course, healing. So that's another ceremony. And over here, they call it the enemy way, too, because a lot of these are prehistoric grave sites. And if you are just walking around, you never know that you step on a hidden grave site, and you can't really know until you get back home years later, and then you start having that visitation by spirits, ghosts and nightmares, and then you get a symptom. And that one affects your blood. You get a high blood pressure, low blood pressure, and then you have diabetes and all of that. So that's related to gravesite exposure. And then so then you have to have those ceremonies done, and it takes care of a lot of those symptoms. And those symptoms are usually like prescribed. The diagnosis has to be correct, and then the referral has to be a certain one. Certain physician had to take care of that, and they were told to go see that individual to do the ceremony. And of course, there's a fee. And that's how our ceremony process is like that. And then some of these things that are sort of like, or taboo, that are kind of like not accepted. Just like when you see a mouse, or if you saw a black widow, or a scorpion, or a centipede in your home, it's a sign that something is coming in. Evil is coming in. Hurt, pain is coming in. So then right off, immediately as that happened, then you're supposed to do a protection prayer, and then use smoke and offering to chase all those demons out and put them back, send them back, say, you don't belong here, and send them back like that. So those are visual first sign you have to do protection to prevent all those sicknesses and other illness to come in. So we safeguard ourselves like that in traditional way, spiritual way like that. And we are told and we are reminded by these stories to be strong, to have faith and belief. And these stories come from the oral history language, the Navajo language, our language, the Nebizat. And one of the stories that they tell you is, at the time of the emergence, they say, in that story, and there was nothing but water, and this whole planet Earth was just water, and somewhere in there was a little tiny man that came to the surface and sitting there, made a barricade so water won't go into that hole where it came out, and sitting there like this. And these people that live in the water came around and told him, hey, sir, you need to go back down in there. You don't belong here. This is our land. This is our territory. No land should be present here. And then he said, no, this is my land. This is mine. Yours is over there. This is where I belong, and this is where I'm sitting on my own property. And then you have to kill me first. Then you can cover it up and put it back into the ground. But I'm already sitting down right here, so you have to destroy me, kill me, or then I'm still here. Get rid of me and put me down in that hole, cover the land and cover it with water. So then they gave him a choice. Okay, they said, one way to get rid of you would be for you to be floating in the water. So he did. He crawled out of that, on top of that hill. He floated in the water there for many, many days. Time-wise it was just sitting there. And as it sat there, he was dared, and of course, they came around and they started eating his flesh here on his leg, on his body, and he developed sores all over his body, and he got scared. He got seriously. He thought he was going to die. He panicked, and he was all suffering and all sitting there or standing there, and then his intuition, his spiritual mind, his insight told him, you better pray. Say your prayers. Do prayer. And talk to your body, talk to your heart, talk to your mind, talk to your physical, talk to this air, talk to this water. And there was a relative, talk to them and ask them for your help. So he did that. He meditated and then he prayed. Then later on he felt a little bit better, and then the sores went away. He healed and he was floating there again. And then he noticed that there's pain inside of him, that some of that water, that bacteria in the water went into his body, and he started to have sores in his body, and he was coughing blood out. And he thought he was going to die, and he meditated some more and sat there, and then his deep inside thoughts and his intuition, his spiritual mind, divine nature of his body told him to sing, hey, like that, saying the prayer that you just said, recited, and how you communicated with your grandfather, your relative, sing those songs, not to sing to them and ask for blessing. So he stayed in the water, and then he started to sing like that, and then he started to heal inside. There was no more blood, and he started to feel better. So those water creatures, they came around and said, hey, you just passed too. Come out of the water and sit there on that little hill and just sit there. And then they told him not to blink, not to move, and just sit there. And then he started to sit there. If you blink or if you move, then you lose. Then you're gonna have to go back, and we kill you or something like that. So then he's just sat there for I don't want to say days or nights, because there was no days and nights. It was just water. It was all dark for a long time. And then they came around and they started picking on him, and they started to poke him with needles or whatever. They even poke his eyes just for him to blink. He just sat there, and they even hit him like that, slap him. He just went like that, and he just stayed there. And for a long time, he didn't move. So finally, they came around and said, okay, you did a good job on that one too. So is that one more test? So they came around and they brought their arrows, and they demonstrated what he needed to do next. So one of them took the arrow and they swallowed the arrow into their mouth and went through the whole body, and then on the other side, the rear end, they took the arrow out and say, here, see? And then they put it back on that side, and then they took the arrow back out over here. If you can do it, you'll be all right. Then you're safe and you can live. So then he took another arrow, and he did the same. Swallowed the arrow and went through his system and came back up and said, all right, And what he thought at the time is that when you eat something, it comes out the other way. So there's already a channel, a hole through your whole body. So what is so complicated about that? And he quickly figured that out, and he did that and then brought it back in there. So then he said, okay, you won. But really it didn't prove anything. So, and then the meaning, the sacrifice, the life, what is the meaning to that? I'm representing all those people that are still in the ground. They need to come up to live on the land. And I'm doing it on their behalf. So he took out his own arrow, two of them like this, and then he put one arrow through under his armpit over here, and the other arrow in here, and at the same time he ran those two arrows through his heart in here like this, pulled it through like this, and grabbed it on the other side, and took it out like that. And then he showed them like this, and then why do it again like that, and take it out like this. Okay, how about you try that? And all those water creatures, they held back and said, nah, that's too dangerous. We can't do that. So then they gave the land to him. They said, okay, you can have the land. You actually earned it or won it or you won it. So this disease, sickness, it can come around and start eating at your flesh. But you have to pray. This sickness, any type of disease can start eating inside your body. But you have a song to cure that. If you want to live in this land, on this land, you have a land to make your home at. And then, no matter what people say, you got to have patience. They can poke you, throw something at you, hit you, and knock you around, and poke your eyes. If you have the patience, a strong heart, you can live through that, like that. So, and then they can tell you to, maybe take your own life or do this to you, even to swallow an arrow, and do that. To have faith, you can do that. Actually, go that far just to save your people, just to save somebody, just to save your loved ones, and you could do that through your prayer, song, patience, and your belief, and it's possible like that. And to actually go beyond that, just to keep your land, you have to almost sacrifice your life. Take those two arrows and take it through your heart. And if you do that, then it proves that you deserve to live, to stay alive. You deserve to help everybody, all the people, what you're doing it for, those people. So these stories are true because through culture and language, we have resilience. And you take this medicine, collect it, and you give it a prayer here to collect that. So you did that. And now you have to have a ceremony so that you could apply it, administer this. There's got to be a ceremony to go with this one. They're tied together. And then there's a prayer, there's a song, there's a story that provides that information for you to do that, like that. And there's a prayer, yes. There's a song to do that, yes. And then there's a person that has to do it, that's initiated. There's a person that is ordained to do that. So the oral history, the story, native language, they realign. It realigns all of these elements, all the findings, and it makes it line up. And for you to do that, to understand that, to take it like that. And the English language sort of does not do justice for that. It has to take that native tongue, native language. Because our native language is a therapeutic language. And the way you sing it, the way you say it, the expression that's made, it touches the heart and the soul. And nature listens. And they are the ones that's going to administer the medicine. They're the ones that are going to apply and administer and apply the healing to the person, individual, to touch the soul and the body and the mind of it like that. So it's very sacred language that we speak in all these indigenous cultures and language or like that. So, and to reclaim your mind, to reclaim your soul, even your land, your water, the air, your mother, your father, your children. You have to use that healing, reclaiming language is our native language, and it speaks for itself when you hear it. And a lot of our young people do not understand that, and we can actually say that shame on you, Mom, Dad, shame on you for not teaching me how to speak my language. Shame on you. You've abandoned me. Or you say, that was one of the first teachings you're supposed to have given me. So that's where we are today in our time and in our history like that. So, and I am a teacher, healer, and go out to all Indian country and try to promote this type of learning education about healing. And I've been doing that for at least about 30 years now, even beyond that. And I was raised at home by my mother, my father, my parents. And this didn't come to me just like you're reading it out of the book or anything like that. So there was no books at the time, nothing to read, no school for medicine people. But I was brought up around the fire here and listened to those songs and prayer while my parents did that. And I hands-on lived that life, and I inherit that, and that's what I have today. And the lifestyle had changed, and sometimes it's good to come over here to get near the fire. It feels good, feels better, feels safe. I'm all right, I'm okay now, like that. To be around these herbal medicine and medicinal medicine, and to be around your instrument, your drum, and all your tools that you use to sustain your life and help yourself. It's better like that. So, and all of these stories, they have meaning, true meaning like that. And because on our reserve lands in the States and everywhere, about out of 100 people, individual, 100 people, about 99% of those people suffer grief. And that's just reality. And people are dying like that. Grief, mental disorder, sleeping disorder, depression, confusion, grief. So don't go to burial services. Don't go to the cemetery. Don't just in the bodies. Yeah, is what they tell you. Don't do that. Listen. They say that to you. It's a big warning that our elders shared with us. And when we come down with these sickness, they'll say, see, I already told you. You already know that you're not supposed to go over there. Why did you go over there? Now you're in that condition now. So that's why you have to learn to listen and try to pick it up and learn and go by that. These are strict rules because in this world there is a taboo law, bridge of law to taboo. The taboo of attraction, like Tim Horton. I was kidding. Laugh. Ha 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 ha. It's addicting, yes. And then that's the law of attraction, because it's red, it's colorful, it sounds so beautiful, wonderful. You can go over there and say, I want that. The second one is contagion. So we have to wear a mask. Taboo. Cover yourself. That's contagion. The third one is similarity. The taboo is similarity. If you are going to have a child, both the father and the mother are both pregnant. So you have to be mindful, be reverent. When you go out, don't go near the cemetery or anywhere. There's death involved. So stay away from that. You don't want to go there because the baby is going to already be affected by that psychologically, and the baby is going to be born with that. When the baby grows up to have a child, that child is going to have already inherited that becomes generational like that. And the other thing that really is deep is abortion, stillborn, loss of a child through that carcass inside your womb. When that happens, then you have another child that grows in there, and the next child comes into existence. That's the one that's going to inherit that similarity. And that's one's 2 or 7 generations or beyond that. And every child that's born through that mother of that child is going to suffer that. The father too is that like that. So that's what I mean. 99% suffer something that is related to mental disorder, and related to gravesite, like that. So I'd like to say thank you. Appreciate being here, and I'm happy to share some of the ancient knowledge and what we go by. And every nation and every culture, we have the same teachings. It's spoken in different dialect, but to save a life. Prayer, song, belief, faith, songs, herbal medicine. So thank you very much.